In our previous lesson, we looked at how arguments need to be logical in order to be strong. Now, sometimes people in debates and elsewhere make arguments which might seem to be strong on the outside, but actually they're not very logical. These are weak arguments pretending to be strong. Now, two types of people normally do this: politicians and journalists. But they sometimes happen in debates too. Come and see what I mean. Hi, Dole. How are you?
Hey, Tom. Good. How are you?
Good. So, Dole, tell me about your granddad.
My grandpa smokes 40 cigarettes a day, and he's 90 years old. So I don't think smoking is harmful.
Right. He smokes 40 a day. He's still alive. So you think smoking's okay?
90 years old. Smoking is okay.
Right. Okay. Thanks, Dole.
Knock on wood, though.
All right, so we call this this is a very weak argument. We call it a generalization. Now, obviously, Dole's grandpa smokes 40 a day. He's still alive. You can't say that smoking's good for you as a result. So a generalization is where we take one example and we make a rule from that example. It's a weak argument. Hi, Emily. How are you?
Hi, how's it going?
Good. So immigrants, tell me about them.
Immigrants. Well, the thing with immigrants is you let one immigrant in the country and they all come into the country. They bring their drugs, they bring their crazy ideas, then they're stealing your wives and your husbands, and you're stealing your country, and then it's all chaos. Immigrants.
Right. So what Emily's saying is, if we let immigrants into our country, then they're going to steal our country. Now, we call this is a weak argument. We call this type of argument a slippery slope argument. Slippery slope argument is where we start with a statement or an argument letting immigrants into the country is bad, and this leads on to an extreme. For example, immigrants are going to steal our country and they're going to take our jobs and take our wives. This is a weak argument. We need to avoid this. Joel, how's it going?
Hey, Tom, good. How are you doing?
Good. So, Joel, Donald Trump. I like some things about him. I don't like others.
I mean, listen, if you watch anything that deals with like Anderson Cooper or Stephen Colbert or Trevor Noah, I mean, you get the idea, and I totally agree with them that you are either for him or you are against him. There's really no middle ground.
Right, so I can't like some things and dislike others then.
No, you are either for him or against him, period.
Right, thanks, Joel. So this is another weak argument. We call it a false dilemma. A false dilemma is when I'm given two choices, when actually the situation is a lot more complex than that. Maybe I like some things about Trump, for example, the way he's handled the economy, and I dislike other things about Trump, for example, the way he treats immigrants and the way he treats women. So we need to avoid this type of arguments. Amy, hi, how are you?
Hey, Tom.
Amy, so you've got an opinion about plastic bottles.
Yeah, I mean, in my opinion, we definitely shouldn't be using plastic bottles for single use.
Okay, and?
And what?
Okay, all right. This is another weak argument. It's weak because Amy isn't giving any supporting evidence for her arguments. It would be far better if she said something like, we should stop using single-use plastics because studies show that plastics are the leading cause of pollution in the oceans. This would make that argument way better. All right, so weak arguments, we need to recognize them when we see them, and we need to avoid using them ourselves. So, weak arguments, don't use them.